We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
I'm so excited for this. This is gonna be a lot.
I am too,
Yeah.
because I don't know this story. I know the very broad outline, right?
Right.
There was I was prepping today too, but so I read your doc, Matt, and I was like, oh yeah, this all registers. I know that's a really haunted house. I know that the Warrens were there.
Sure.
That's kind of it.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's sort of, I think that's what a lot of people know, because a lot of it then comes from just like the movie and whatever, you know.
Which I, of course, haven't seen.
Of course not.
That's
There were
No.
two. There was one in
They're
the
okay.
70s right after, and then there was another one in like the mid 2000s with Ryan Reynolds randomly.
There was?
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds is in one playing George Lutz.
I remember that movie.
It's a very strange choice for him, but I don't know.
Yeah.
He does a lot of strange choices, to be honest.
Sometimes
He's one of those.
you got to make money, you know?
He also doesn't look
Yeah.
anything like George Lutz.
Well, yeah.
I feel like we've talked about this Hollywood license.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
just like, what handsome person do we want to put in this role?
Well, and that's the Conjuring too. Like the whole Conjuring franchise, which is part of the reason that I wanted to do this in this season, because the new one came out with Patrick Wilson, who looks nothing like Ed Warren. Vera Farmiga kind of looks like Lorraine Warren. Patrick Wilson looks nothing like Ed Warren.
Vera Farmiga kind of looks like Lorraine Warren in the fact that they're both attractive people, but Vera is like highly attractive. Like she's like unquestionably beautiful.
In this one, they actually did her hair in the
They
like quasi
did.
beehive and
They
stuff,
kinda-
so
they
she
did
looks a
make
little
her
bit
look
more like her.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
That weird like not quite Bride of Frankenstein that she has going on.
Good luck getting Patrick Wilson to look anything like Ed Warren, though.
Yeah, he's got to add like 40 pounds.
Yeah, and also just this haunted expression. Like he
Yeah.
looks so haunted.
Yeah, haunted and dumpy.
Oh, man, I'm looking at him right now.
Ed Warren.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
kind of looks
I
like
see
an
what-
Addams Family member.
He
Yes.
does. He looks like cousin. No, cousin it. Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if you cleaned up Uncle Fester and made him like a bit more normal looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Lorraine Warren, I'm just looking at this one picture. Like Lorraine Warren is the one that looks like she has this little sort of like evil, knowing look to her.
Yeah.
In all the pictures, like Ed looks dumpy and kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Lorraine has a bit of an impish grin, but she's a very sweet person.
She's very
Oh,
sweet.
really?
Yeah, yeah. She's
Well, she
very,
was. She's not alive anymore,
Yeah, she's
but-
not. Neither of them are alive anymore.
Yeah.
But Lorraine. I'm not saying that Lorraine is like this, but I do get that kind of that grin, that look. That she gives me this impression of an elderly relative who might babysit you and then also lock you in a closet if you're being bad.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
like there's
for
like
your own
there's an
good,
edge
darling.
to her. I'm not saying that Lorraine Warren had that edge, but
But you can
Just
kind of see that
something
old
about it,
school,
right?
that old school behavioral
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
She has resting devious face.
Oh, how do I even get into this? I can't. We are slaying monsters. We've got Maddie J across the table. We got Katie.
Hello.
And I'm EJ. And we are going to start the Amityville Horror.
Yes, we are. Yes. I'm so excited. This has been something that I think we've all wanted to cover for quite a while. This is the Amityville Horror. This is our Halloween special. This will take us through the entire spooky season. So buckle up, because it's going to be a doozy.
Get your pillowcases, get your
Yeah.
candy corn.
Yeah, turn down the lights a little bit, you know? If you want to get a little altered, we won't judge.
I almost bought some candy corn at the grocery store yesterday because it's out. And I was like, I think it's a little early. You can't do it yet.
Do you still like
But
candy
October
corn?
1st. I don't like candy corn. I always buy myself a pack of the Brock's candy pumpkins. I like
Oh,
the
yeah.
pumpkins.
Okay.
And I can have like one
Right.
at a time because they're
Yes.
so sweet. But there's something about them similar to like the Reese's like Christmas trees or like how the shape is better and it makes the whatever better. Like candy corn just tastes like plastic to me. But
Yes.
like with the pumpkin, there's enough of the like mallowy texture that I like it.
Yeah.
But they're sickeningly sweet. So I can have like one at a time.
Totally.
But I always buy a bag and eat them.
Do you eat the whole bag? Can you
No,
get small
probably-
enough bags? Because I always see
No,
them in the big bags. And I'm like,
can't.
well, I'm only going to have 3 in a month. It's not worth it.
No, I buy the whole bag and I eat, one a day or one every other day or something like that. And then I usually I'll keep them into November because they're pumpkins. It's Thanksgiving-y or whatever.
sure.
And then I get rid of them by like December. If I don't eat them all, I just throw them away.
Yeah.
But wow, I'm sure everyone wanted to know that long story about candy pumpkins.
We're going to have a lot of this, I think.
Oh boy, yeah. Also, I do want to put up front a very quick trigger warning that we are going to talk very briefly about sexual assault through horror fiction and Rosemary's Baby. So not real life sexual assault, but the sexual assault associated with that film in particular. So if anybody has any issues with that, we'll let you know when we get to that section too. But our story today, in the annals of haunted house stories, many places claim to be the most haunted or the most active. We're talking Borley Rectory in Essex, Madame Lalaury's house in New Orleans, the Borden residence, Lizzie Borden's house in Massachusetts, the Winchester Mystery House, which we had talked about a couple of years ago. These have all vied for the title of most haunted house in the past. But even the most active and most terrifying can't hold a candle to the best known haunted house in the world. That title, I would say, is undisputedly held by a Dutch colonial revival on a quiet little street called Ocean Avenue in Long Island. Because that house, 112 Ocean Avenue, was the site of the most legendary haunting in history. In honor of Halloween, the spookiest season of the year, we are going to talk about the granddaddy of them all. We are going to talk about the Amityville Horror. This is a story of real-life murder, of ancient rites, sacrifices, unspeakable terrors that plagued one family. It's the story of an evil, allegedly so powerful that it could twist men's minds and drive them to unspeakable acts of violence. Story of possession, demonic attacks, and malicious corruption. But this is also the story of manipulation, deceit, and a shitload of lies. Because the Amityville house was never haunted, but the characters who built this story did so with such skill that they crafted not just another haunted house fable, but an entire media empire. On a foundation of lies, the Amityville Horror redefined the haunting narrative and skyrocketed the story's architects into fame. So the lore, legend, and truth of the Amityville Horror will be the subject of this Halloween series for us. Now, before we start, let's acknowledge our sources for this series. I'll be using the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, of course, and the Amityville Horror Conspiracy by Stephen and Roxanne Kaplan, and a Skeptical Inquirer article, Amityville, The Horror of It All by Joe Nickell. And let's get this out of the way at the beginning. While the house at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville was the site of a family annihilation, the allegations of haunting and evil presences, it's all bullshit, complete fabrications. But the story of how the Amityville Horror as a legend came to be is, I think, a fascinating look at the horror boom of the 1970s and the cultural state of religion in America at that time. And I think even more fascinating are the figures behind this mythology, whose contributions turned what is really a simple case of buyer's remorse into one of the most fascinating ghost stories of all time.
And I do sympathize with the Lutzes in a way, because when we moved into our house, our heater broke immediately. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
it was expensive
Yeah.
to fix. And so I get oh God, our heater broke, which is literally what happened with them. Let's find a way to not have to pay for this.
Yeah, I mean exactly. And buying a house is such a huge undertaking to begin with. They went in for a lot of money. They had a lot of shit go down and figured out a way to cover it themselves and make their money back, and then a whole bunch more.
I also kind of get the whole, like, you move into a house and you know the history, like, because they knew the history of the house when they moved in.
Yeah.
Like, without giving away details, like, our house, you know, there was a sad vibe in our house when we moved in, and just because of the things that we knew. And I can so easily see how first of all, it takes time to cleanse, like to put your new energy into a house, like positive energy. I'm not talking wooey stuff. I just mean like new people, new energy, new positivity.
Make new memories, right?
Yeah,
in
make
that
new
space.
memories.
Make new memories. And also do like houses look sad because they need care, right? So like it takes time to get your stuff in, paint the walls, hang the curtains, put the art up.
Yeah,
like,
get the old smell out, like, you know, because sometimes
Yeah.
there's smoke smell and stuff. And it's kind of like, it took time, I think, for me to feel like we've turned over the vibe in the house. And we didn't have a mass murder in our house. You know what I mean? So imagine
That we know of.
that we know of. Imagine what it's like, though, to like move into a home where you're already susceptible to believing this stuff, and it's a mass murder.
Well, and we've talked about this. I don't really believe in ghosts and hauntings, but I don't think I would want to live in a house where there was a murder committed, just because I would always be looking for evidence of it. Like every little spot on the wall and whatever, I'd be like, oh, is that blood? Is that, you know, something like that?
Yeah.
It would just always be in the back of my mind. And that's a little weird for a place that you're going to live.
I like to think of houses as like having journeys, right? They oftentimes are there for much longer than people, the lives of people, but also like family that was in there. You know, people leave and new people come in. And I think you have to have a particularly strong feeling of that sense of a house's journey to move past something like really violent happening in your house that you know about. And like, I think it's okay. Like, I always find it funny on Ghost Adventures and other shows like that when they're like, the family died in this room. I'm like, people have died in every old house because people didn't used to go to hospitals to die.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
you just don't, this isn't a famous house, so no one's cared to inform you that, like, someone died in this room, like, 100 years ago.
Yeah. They
But,
were born
like,
and died.
So, yeah, but I think when you know something like that has happened, I agree with you, Matt. Like, I don't know that I would be looking for evidence of it, but I think pushing past that and being like, I'm shepherding this house on its next journey.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard. It would be hard.
That's a very positive way to look at it, though. Like, I'm helping this house to move into its next phase instead of I'm coming to this house as a intruder almost. Like
Yeah.
usurping the past of this house.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a ton of places that we could start this story, but let's start on January 13th, 1976. Now, all day, a torrential rainstorm had blanketed Long Island in sleet and freezing rain. The temperature showed 20 degrees, and the weather was so bad, so miserable that nobody was going out in it. As the night wore on, one house on the bay refused to sleep. You had lightning crashing all around this place, and George Lutz snapped awake in his bedroom of the house of 112 Ocean Avenue. He felt a horrible, crushing pressure pinning him down to the mattress, a force that he would later describe as the hooves of an invisible animal or monster. Paralyzed, unable to wake his wife, who was asleep next to him, he could only gasp in terror as this force crushed him down. His nightmare was finally broken by his children's screams. They were screaming, "There's something in our room." And then his sons, Danny and Chris, shook him awake, and he stumbled into the hallway only to freeze in his tracks because towering at the top of the staircase was a figure dressed in a white robe. As George looked up at it, completely frozen in terror, it extended a hand and pointed a finger at him as if saying, "You're next."
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I already have questions. Sorry, I cut you off. Keep going.
So George shoved all of his children back into the bedroom. He shook his wife awake, and he uttered the words that would ultimately save his family. He said, "We are leaving." And they grabbed their dog, Harry, and dragged their 3 children out of the house for the final time. The rainstorm had finally abated, and they were able to jump into their van, pile in, and he gunned it down Ocean Avenue, left their house behind them. And as a final insult, George chanced a glance back in the rearview mirror and said, "I'll never see you again, you son of a bitch." They'd been in the home for 28 days. In that time, the Amityville house had pushed that family to the brink of annihilation. And George was convinced that even another day in that house would have meant death for all of them. At least that's how the story goes. Do you want to ask questions, Katie, or do you want to just wait?
Yeah, because my questions don't even have to do with the story.
Yeah.
Well, they do, but they have to do with the scene setting that people like to do,
Yeah.
which is there was lightning crashing around the house.
Oh, yeah.
Really? In February 13th?
January
During sleet?
January 13th during a sleet storm.
During a sleet storm in the Northeast? No.
But it was
No.
supernatural, Katie.
There wouldn't be lightning, though.
But the demons did it.
The demons did it.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. That part always annoys me when people are like, there was thunder. I'm like, listen, I know we associate thunder with ominous things, but it's the winter time. Now you can, I don't want to get into like meteorology here. Like quick changes in pressure can cause slight thunder storms like in the winter. It happens occasionally in the South. It like does not really happen in the Northeast as far as I'm aware. I never experienced thunder in the wintertime. And definitely not lightning. I'm just saying, I'm already upset.
That's the problem. It's not the ghost on the stairs. It's
the
that there's
weather.
no lightning in the winter. Hello.
People are not paying attention to the story.
Got you, George. We got you. It's over, George. Well, I like it. And I think the other thing is that, like, why was the mom not awake when the children were running in saying, "Wake up, wake up"? First of all, if you know anything about the relationship between George and those kids would be terrified to run into George's room and shake him awake. They
Yeah.
would run to their mommy, not that guy, because they did not like that man. That man was scary.
There's a fascinating. I mean, we are in the process of watching My Amityville Horror, which is a documentary about Danny, the son, as an adult. It came out 10 years ago or something like that. And he talks about how he fucking hated his stepfather, George. He despised him. And there is no chance that Danny from that story would have run in and shook George awake, because it seems like George would have screamed at him.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Well, also, the other thing that was a contradiction in the story is he said he woke up because of the thunder, the non-existent thunder, and he had hooves on his chest. And
Right.
then it says that he wakes up from the kids running in and, like, waking him up. And, like, I don't want to, like, totally belabor that point too much, because I know you can wake up but not really be fully awake. Like when you're sleeping, there's that sort of like in between state where you're just like, you can almost like dream your actual surroundings. Like your actual surroundings can be a dream, and then you actually wake up. Like I've done that before. But yeah, that's another thing where I was like, he said he was already awake, and then he awoke because the kids were yelling. Like
This is a point where if we took the entire story at face value and said, okay, I believe that every single event here happened, you could make the argument that George Lutz was experiencing sleep paralysis. And that pressure on the chest is very indicative of sleep paralysis. And the kids waking him up was actually fully waking him up and breaking the sleep paralysis. That said, all of this is bullshit. So none of this ever actually happened. So there's no reason for us to even argue that point because it's not real.
But I will say I just looked this up, Katie, because I'm very curious. Because I only looked this up because I read The Terror by Dan Simmons, and in The Terror, he talks about how the sailors encountered lightning crashing during a horrible blizzard in the Northwest Passage. So I have to mention this.
Oh, it does happen?
It can, but it's not common. So lightning can occur during a snowstorm when a really intense cold front slams into warmer air. That might happen as the seasons change, but it also might be more common around a coastal area where there can be a large temperature difference between the ocean and the land.
Okay.
This is according to earthsky.org. So I just thought that was interesting.
Boom. Well, then it's all true.
Then it's all
true.
So yeah.
It's all true. Well, I will say, I did say, like, it can happen, like, when there are those big temperature shifts, which is why I feel like it normally happens, like, in the South, because typically you have, like, warmer weather during the winter in the South, and then you'll get, like, a big cold front. If it comes through really quickly, you can get that, like, thunder or lightning. But that is interesting. I didn't think about the fact that it could happen on the coast or near water because you have those pressure differences or temperature differences.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said about the South. I guess it's kind of turbulent like that. There's a lot of different variables.
And it's Long Island. Yeah.
There's more like chances for that to happen because the weather is typically warmer. Like in New England, I feel like, and even in Long Island, a lot of times the weather is cold. It's just cold. You don't get the extreme temperature swings that you can get in the South in the winter, where it can decide to be 70 sometimes.
Yes.
Even before climate change, we would always get like a little warm snap in the winter down here. But anyway, enough about that. It doesn't matter because it's all bullshit.
That's true. But it's nice to learn things about meteorology. I don't know.
Yeah. So this whole account that I just relayed to you comes from the 1977 book, The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. Allegedly, that is a full account of the Lutz's miserable month in their new home. That book was incredibly successful. It was a bestseller for almost a year and sold over 6 million copies by 1981. It was optioned almost immediately, and in 1979, the film The Amityville Horror grossed over $86 million in its theatrical run. To understand how the story of the Lutz's ill-fated month of home ownership became one of the most successful horror franchises of all time, we have to talk about the state of horror in the 1970s, particularly the state of the paranormal and, in turn, the state of America's faith. Now, America in the 1970s was in a very unique phase for the country. You had 2 global wars. We had rebuilt the economy based around industrialization, rapidly rising corporate workforce. But this had also been a time of countercultural revolution. Some Americans coming back from war were soothing those wounds by burying themselves in work, trying to make financial success for themselves and their families. Others sought out enlightenment from more esoteric sources, like your New Age religions, drugs, and the exploration of humanity that came from the hippie movement and ultimately became that movement. By the 1960s, America had gotten itself mixed up in Korea and Vietnam and was drafting young people to go fight overseas in a war that, to them, a lot of them anyway, they seemed like these wars made no sense. This butted up against numerous protests and marches for civil rights, racial segregation, and just that general anti-establishment feeling of the time. Younger Americans started rejecting the traditional, quote-unquote, traditional society values that their parents had built. You got to get a job. You got to have a nuclear family. You got to live on a plot of land and all of that, right? Instead, you have hippies and the countercultural movement that is going on an expansion of norms. What else can we get out of life that isn't just this trail that's been laid out for us?
I feel like Forrest Gump is a really good example of that. Like
Yeah.
that whole movie is like all about that counterculture and like bucking tradition and just being true to yourself and finding yourself, and I don't know. Yeah.
And then you have Forrest sort of like doing the same, but in a different way.
In his
like,
way.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not doing it in the realm of like counterculture versus normal traditions. He's just like, I'm different, and people don't look at me the same way that they look at everyone else. So I'm just trying to find myself.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
that's such a good take on that movie, EJ. I haven't seen that movie in
thanks.
forever.
So
yeah,
good.
I
love
should
that
watch
movie.
it.
Yeah.
Now, 1967 saw the Summer of Love, where thousands of people gathered to find commonality and do a whole bunch of drugs. This was a time of hope and love, all mixed up in the turmoil and chaos of these wars and these conflicts. And you had a generation that was rejecting traditions, carving out a new path for themselves. And to help them along that way, they began exploring other faiths beyond the old standby of Western Christianity. So you had Eastern religions like Hinduism, Buddhism becoming more commonplace. You had spirituality. You had people doing yoga. These were all booming at the time. Some people turned to neo-paganism and Wicca, and some even started digging up older theologians like Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky, and the Thelemites. This brought a very large swath of open-minded Americans toward these esoteric ideas. Around the time that San Francisco saw the gatherings of the Summer of Love, there was another force rising in that city, the city by the bay, too. Led by Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan established itself in 1966 and dug its heels into this countercultural war. LaVey was goth before goth was cool. He drove a coroner's van around San Francisco, and he gave lectures on the paranormal and the occult.
Oh my God.
He owned a pet leopard named Zoltan, led satanic masses, and spoke out against what he saw as a blind following of Christian values. LaVey was always kind of musically inclined, and he got his start playing organ in tent revivals after World War II. This musical ability also got him invited into nightclub and carnival gigs as well, and he claimed to have an affair with Marilyn Monroe during one of these times at carnival.
I really doubt that.
Before she was famous.
I really doubt
I also really doubt that. But so the point is that he was splitting his time between nightclubs and, kind of nighttime debauchery and then Sunday masses, but playing the organ at both of them. And that would later become the foundation for his church. He wrote, "On Saturday night, I would see men lusting after half-naked girls dancing at the carnival, and on Sunday morning, when I was playing organ for tent show evangelists at the other end of the carnival lot, I would see these same men sitting in the pews with their wives and children, asking God to forgive them and purge them of their carnal desires. And next Saturday, they'd be back at the carnival or some other place of indulgence."
Wow. This is because we don't have the internet. We can't hide behind our internet. Like, back in the day, like, you would just go to the other side of the tent and, like, look at the ladies. Like, that would be, like, and you could be caught immediately. Where today, these Republican Christians are running around being all perfect and definitely hiring, like, men to have sex with and stuff. And
I think, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, EJ. I think people are just as good until they're not as keeping secrets as they were in the past. Alistair wasn't going around being like, "Hey, didn't I see you last night at such and such a place?" He's just like, "I know this now about you." And all the other men who saw each other there and now saw each other here know that about themselves. And I think it's true about, like, the escort services, the other places that, like, they know. People know. Right?
Yep.
The people you're sleeping with, the people that you're communicating with, they know, and they're keeping that secret for you until they decide not to.
I wish they wouldn't keep the secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and it must have changed Anton LaVey's view of the world and hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he said, I knew that Christian churches thrive on hypocrisy and that man's carnal nature will win out no matter how much it is purged or scourged by any white light religion. To avoid the Korean draft, Anton LaVey enrolled in college and studied criminology at City College of San Francisco. Now, he could have just become a detective, but he's a little bit too weird to do something so traditional, and so he claimed to be a psychic investigator who worked very closely with the San Francisco Police Department to solve their weirder cases. If you believe him, his time during his work with the San Francisco Police Department was a bit like the X-Files or Wellington Paranormal, where he would respond to calls about like ghosts, vampires, witches, and all of that shit. And they would get routed to him, and then he would go out and he would investigate like hauntings for the police.
Wait, I need to know though, is this like, did he actually have this job and we don't know if his accounting of the tales is true, or did he not actually have this job?
The police have no record of his involvement.
Okay.
This is much
Cool.
like the Marilyn Monroe story.
It makes it even better. It's entirely made up. I mean, because I do know that, like, not that there are police departments that have like special units for these kinds of things, but police officers do get calls like that. Like one of my favorite stories from my dad, who for our listeners was in law enforcement for 30 years, it's like a haunted story.
Ooh.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, they got called out for intruder and there was no one there.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's wild. I'll tell you, I don't want to take up the time here, but maybe we'll do it as like a little extra clip for listeners if they're interested in hearing it. I can tell the story, but these kinds of calls happen to law enforcement officers, like where people are like, something's in my house or something weird is happening and I don't know what it is. And like our trained resource is to call the police for them to come and figure it out. And so I do feel that's why I asked, like, if he actually had this position, because I do think that I could see a major police force being like, you're in charge of the weird shit.
Yes.
Except I don't think you want that dude to represent you, though.
No, probably not.
So anyway.
Though, good TV show idea.
Yeah, right.
Like the goth paranormal police force investigator.
That'd be hilarious.
No matter what, this reputation gave him the clout to begin giving lectures on the paranormal in San Francisco. And that also included rituals. He would talk about witchcraft. He would talk about magic. And attendance in these started to grow. And as it did, he began taking on more of a dramatic appearance. He shaved his head in the style of a medieval executioner, and he altered his clothes to be more of this like Black Pope aesthetic. By the mid-1960s, LaVey's lectures had turned into full-blown masses, and the Church of Satan was born. He expanded his curriculum even more and began proselytizing on his own philosophy, incorporating cultural ideas that he identified with, like Ayn Rand, Nietzsche, and social Darwinism. Now he was dressing like a suburban dad on Halloween all the time, and his Church of Satan became this foil for conservatives. He was the embodiment of everything the evangelists feared about New Age religion. Because at its core, Satanism was purely countercultural. Defy tradition, defy oppression, embrace free love, rebel against unjust authority. And all of this made it really easy for the conservatives to start to link New Age esotericism to Satanism through counterculture. The perception became that LaVey and the Church of Satan was kind of the big bad end guy. And if you would get there through exploring any of the hippie paths. So, oh man, you're experimenting with drugs or sex? Well, that's going to lead to Eastern religions. That's ultimately going to lead you into worshiping the devil. Makes no sense, but
No, they love that though. They love to draw something out to its unlogical conclusion.
yeah, that's like the norm for Christian fears, right? Like
Yes.
push it as far as it can go.
You smoked a joint once? Oh my God.
Yeah, Katie, did you have Dare when you were growing up?
Of course. I
Okay.
wish I still had my t-shirt. I would wear that shit all the
Yes,
time.
Me too. Oh my God.
You remember the gateway drugs where they were like, if you drink, you're gonna do heroin.
Yeah.
What?
Marijuana. I mean, marijuana was,
marijuana.
I mean, we all know it was like, that was the evil
That was-
drug.
yeah, that-
in,
that
like,
was the big one.
80s, 70s, and 80s. Yeah.
Yep.
80s was like, if you do weed, you're basically going to die of a heroin overdose.
Yeah. And AIDS too, probably.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You're just going to end up under a bridge if you do any marijuana.
If you do any drugs at all, ever,
Yes.
or even think about doing them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. LaVey's church, like, they didn't even worship a deity like Satan. Satan's not present in the Church of Satan, really. Much like Aleister Crowley, LaVey just wanted to fuck with people and fuck with society. And so he dressed like a cult leader with plastic devil horns, and that was just an easy way for him to get into people's heads. When asked about his church, he even said that it was, quote, just Ayn Rand's philosophy with ceremony and ritual added.
See, this is the thing that's weird. I did not know that he was into like Ayn Rand and social Darwinism and all
Yeah.
this stuff. I'm like, that's all fucked up. And also, it's ironic that that's what he was into because given the dynamic then of like Christians being like, oh no, Satan, the Church of Satan, because now that's what they're all into. So
Yeah. Yeah, it was just kind of like early libertarians fucking with each other.
Yeah.
they were early trolls.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Now, the church, meaning the Satanic Church, took the stance that the Bible wasn't real and the mythic figure of Satan was just a representation of the rebellion against oppression and tyranny and blind faith, which terrified the fuck out of conservative Christians because, let's be honest, they relied on subservience through oppression, tyranny, and blind faith. More fuel was added to this in 1969 when a cult spearheaded by Charles Manson committed a spree of murders in California. Culminating with the murder of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, the Manson murders had that magic combination of brutality and sensationalism that catapulted them into total infamy. And of course, Manson and his followers were quickly linked to Satanism, along with the surprisingly rapid rise of serial killers in the 1970s, like Ted Bundy and the Zodiac Killer. All the rumors around them were like, oh, these are satanic killers, right?
I didn't realize that people felt there was like this rapid rise of serial killers in the 70s. And this is based on nothing, just a thought. I think there have always been serial killers. I just think we were really shitty. There wasn't a lot of like detective work besides talking to people. And that was it. And if no one confessed anything or you didn't end up happening upon a clue that could lead you to somebody, you just didn't pay attention. And I also think prior to the 70s, I mean, it's still kind of true. Like, people just didn't pay attention. If, like, poor people went missing, women considered prostitutes or, like, lost women went missing, people were like, meh.
Yeah.
And so it was just, like, nobody paid attention. And so the rapid rise is not because it wasn't happening, but because nobody cared. Or, like, nobody cared in that way, you know?
And we were treating it more, we were actually dealing with it. Right? Like we were actually dealing with these missing people instead of just shrugging it off and being like, they were derelict anyway. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know? There's also,
Yeah.
I don't know how much truth there is. There's a theory about unleaded gasoline too, and that unleaded gasoline may have partly been the reason that generation in the 1970s was a little bit off kilter.
Yeah, not sure if that's true or not.
I don't know
but
if that's I don't know if that's true,
It is
but
an
that's one of the
interesting theory.
theories. Yeah.
I'll take it. Sounds fun.
Sounds very fun. I'll also throw out there that the FBI's serial crime unit was really underway I think somewhere between 77 and 80, where they really started to dig into the concept of serial killer. So it was a new idea, and even though serial killing has been happening since the beginning of humanity, I think that we really began to codify it then, and I think that's why we were really hearing about it, because it became this like sensational new psychological vertical, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, yes, there have been serial killers since the beginning of the time. A lot of them were in charge of countries.
So, like Vlad the Impaler.
Like
Oh, yeah.
Vlad the Impaler. Jack the Ripper,
Yeah.
very famous one.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, and you also had faster media too, because now everybody has TVs, so everybody's hearing about serial killers, and so it's more present in people's minds, and yes, you're codifying it as a serial killer instead of there were a couple of murders here that might have gotten missed if you were just reading obituaries and police reports in the newspaper, and yeah. So it's a perceived rapid rise, I suppose, but there are, as we unpack it, we can definitely see that there are reasons behind this. And
Yeah, but people are obsessed and probably now scared
Yes.
because that's the next thing that happens.
Right. And none of it's linked to Satanism, but it became linked to Satanism. The Church of Satan became this perfect scapegoat for conservative evangelists because now they can draw a direct, if somewhat hazy line from hippies and counterculture to serial killers using Satanism as a signpost. Same way we did before. Oh, you started experimenting with drugs and sex? Oh, you're getting into the Church of Satan? Oh my God, the Church of Satan is going to make you a serial killer. Despite all of this rhetoric, the real boogeyman that evangelists feared wasn't really Satan, the red-skinned, pointy-eared devil. Like so much of America's history, it was women making choices about their own bodies. One of the side effects of the countercultural revolution is that Americans began to exert control over their own destiny. Some of this came out of the civil rights movement, with Black Americans demanding equal rights and freedom from centuries of oppression. And alongside that, American women started rallying about abortion legislation. Since the mid-19th century, the religious right had been chipping away at abortion freedom in America. In 1869, the Catholic Church banned abortion. In 1873, the Comstock Law made it illegal to distribute abortion drugs and medication through the U.S. Postal Service, so you couldn't ship it anywhere. And by the end of the century, abortion was being criminalized in most U.S. states. In 1973, exactly 100 years after the Comstock Law, the U.S. Supreme Court heard from Texas attorney Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington, representing Norma McCorvey under the name Jane Roe, in her case against attorney Henry Wade. Wade litigated that under Texas law, abortions were illegal unless they were life-saving. Roe's lawyer argued that it's nobody's damn business. And in a 7-2 vote on January 22nd, 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of Roe, effectively ending the abortion ban for the country. That decision would serve as a template for personal freedoms, body autonomy, and women's rights for nearly 40 years until it was overturned in 2022. Slaying Monsters is not a political podcast, but it is a podcast about history and context. And I believe that Roe v. Wade and that decision was one of the most defining moments in American history. Landing at this sociologically turbulent time, it shook the moral foundation of America to its core. And the evangelists saw it as a direct attack on their doctrine and a powerful victory for this countercultural movement that they've been trying to stamp out for a decade or more. And now it's a boogeyman because if we allow victories for counterculture, we allow victories for Satanism, we allow victories for these murderous intentions that are going to come down the pipeline. In a way, Roe was really the culmination of all the 1960s counterculture. Reject oppression, reject religious dogma, embrace your individual rights.
Do you think that Satan was a scapegoat, and what Christianity, the Christian fundamentalist right, the leadership there really wanted was just control. Like, it wasn't, Satan was the boogeyman, but control was what they were really after. Like, they knew that if women were able to say, I don't want to have babies, I want to go to work, I want to make a living for myself and have autonomy, that was the end of their perfect little Christian American family structure.
Absolutely.
And Satan was just like, let's make them scared of a boogeyman, because control is really hard to say. It's why, you know, I'm not going to say as a Christian fundamentalist leader, I want to control every aspect of your life and tell you what to do. But I think back in the day, it was more like, no, let's just make Satan the one who is bad, and let's fight against Satan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely true. I actually was reading a really interesting article in Politico from 2014 and talking about abortion did become the galvanizing sort of message around for evangelicals, turning them into this political voting bloc that became super powerful in the late 70s and the 80s. But that actually that ended up being the message that they managed to get to stick. But the thing that actually galvanized the leaders of the religious right to like start creating this political voting bloc was desegregation. Because 1969, that must have been like the last deadline for like you actually have to like desegregate now. What happened was they started forming Christian schools that were all white schools. They were private schools. They started forming private schools that people could send their kids to. And they wanted tax exempt status because they were saying they were Christian schools. Well, the IRS caught on to this and was like, there was a court case that said that if you are segregated school, you do not meet the requirements for tax exempt status. Someone sued, and then it went up into the courts, and they said, like, no, like if you can have your tax exempt status, but you have to admit African Americans. What it came down to is they kept fighting this, and Bob Jones University was suing, and finally the IRS kept sending them notes. So in the early 70s, the IRS sent letters to all these schools basically being like, desegregate or you're going to lose your tax exempt status. And Bob Jones University kept fighting back. And finally the IRS was like, you're done. Give it. You have to give us your money. Like you have to pay taxes. That is when all of the religious leaders flipped out and they switched the narrative from it being about like they shouldn't have to desegregate to this is about their religious freedom, and started arguing there. They were trying different things to like get the public to care, and they found that they were able to make abortion stick. And so then that became, and obviously by the late 70s, abortion was the message that was sticking. So it was only 5 years later. So like, I think everything you just said about then linking it to Satanism and counterculture and all these things, 100% true. But I just wanted to add in that extra little note that like, it wasn't just women's freedom that was bothering them.
Yeah.
It was civil rights also. Like, and the fact that the government was like, no, you have to desegregate. You cannot go off into your little communities and be like, well, also like go off into your little communities and then also be like, but I don't want to have to pay taxes. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was segregation and it was also taxes.
and taxes. But also abortion did end up proving extremely useful. But I found that interesting because they said, like, they outline like historical record and things. And apparently when Roe was handed down in like Christianity Today and like Southern Baptist newsletters and things, people were just like, they were either kind of for it because people considered it a Catholic issue. And in their minds, they were sort of like, they essentially had the position of that's between a woman and her family and her doctor, which is like crazy to think of now. But they either had that position or they were just like sort of silently neutral. They didn't say anything.
Right.
And then it became what it is today. They used it as a galvanizing issue. The leaders did, to create a political voting bloc to then do what they wanted to do. But I just found that so fascinating, like how that narrative changed in 5 years, half a decade, right?
Right.
It's wild. People didn't care. They really didn't care. And I think it's very important to point that out, that you can be manipulated into caring about something to very strong degrees. And it's like, guys, wake up. Like, they told you what to care about, and you think this is such a big deal. It's really not.
And I do think some people cared, right? But like not everyone, not to this extent. And then I think, to your point, Matt, because I want to get back to Satanism, but like I think that helped, right? They were just like, now we're just going to make this scary boogeyman, like you said, EJ, of Satanism, and like, oh, well, if you even start down this road, you're just going to become this like lost soul.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like the parent telling the kid, don't go down to the lake because the horse creature is going to get you.
Yeah, the river horse monster.
Like, you're controlling the child by giving them a boogeyman. It's all about fucking control. And the faster people realize that that's what's going on, the faster they can start thinking for themselves and get the hell out of this Christian fundamentalist cult thinking.
Or like stay in your bed because there's a monster under the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And all it is a trick for the parent to be like, I don't want to have to fucking deal with you. Please stay in your bed.
Yeah.
But you're doing it by force instead of like...
And manipulation.
You're doing it, like through psychological control instead of persuading someone that, you know, you need to go to bed.
It's a bad sign if somebody doesn't want you to think freely. It's a really, really bad sign. It's a sign to run away,
Or ask
run in the other direction.
questions.
Yep.
Exactly. The minute someone's like mad at you for asking a question, and I do not mean this in a like, I'm just asking questions kind of way. I mean in a good faith, like, I'm curious about X kind of way.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that's a bad sign.
Yeah. Why are Buddhists going to hell, mommy? If Christians are, you know, how come what about the Buddhists that have never heard of God? Don't ask that question. Shut up.
Wait, are you saying that, EJ, because you remember my church story?
Actually,
or did you just
no,
make
I
that
had
up?
Okay, so it wasn't mom. It wasn't my mom. My mom's great. I had a family member that I asked that question to a family member once, a fundamentalist Christian family member. They did not appreciate that question. Did you have the same thing?
Legitimately, like literally the same conversation at my youth group.
Wow.
And that's what made me stop like going to Sunday school when I was a senior in high school, and then eventually like led me down the path to atheism, where I am today, asking questions. I mean, they're not wrong. It does lead to things.
It does. They can no longer dig their little claws into you, Katie.
See, it happened, and then you got in with the drugs and the hippies and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But literally the exact same question.
Wow. I bet they did not like that question.
No, my youth leader flipped the fuck out.
Jesus,
And then the next week at church, the assistant pastor was like, Katie, I hear you're becoming interested in Buddhism, and I was wondering if you'd like to talk. And I was like, no.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
That is
question.
Crazy. Yep, same question.
So anyway, this manipulation that they were able to do, they had a particular tool in their toolbox that they hadn't had before either. Because the verdict of Roe kickstarted this new wave of Christian fundamentalism that had been brewing since the early 1960s. That was called the Jesus movement, just the Jesus movement. And that brought this new wave of evangelism, and that brought forth a new kind of church leader, the televangelist. That leads us to Billy Graham. Born in 1918 in North Carolina, Graham was loud and annoying from his birth. As a kid, he used to hang from trees and scream like Tarzan. His father later said that's why he preached the way he did, because he liked to yell. Even Other Christians disliked him, and his local youth group wouldn't let him in because he wouldn't shut the fuck up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought you were just being mean.
No,
but-
this is
okay.
real. Graham attended Bible school in Florida and Illinois and ended up with degrees in theology and anthropology. He tried to serve in World War II, but came down with mumps and never left the United States. But after the war, he began preaching in what he called the Crusades. He would go to a place, he would put up tents and get people to sing and chant along with him as he preached at them. These events were very similar to the tent revivals that Anton LaVey was playing organs at. They became so successful that Billy Graham took his act to Madison Square Garden, where he was there for 16 weeks, like he was fucking fish. Yeah.
What?
Yes. His shows were televised and became some of the first televangelism in history. Inspired by the success and the reach of this, he started his own media company. He had radio, he had TV broadcasts, he had a newspaper column, he had magazines, he had a film production company even. And so for the first time, Christian fundamentalism was being leveraged through the power of rising media. He fucking leveraged. He was the proest of pro-life at the time. He believed that abortions should only be legal in cases of rape, incest, and endangered health. But he also believed that legalizing abortions would, quote, encourage promiscuity, as if access to abortions was going to turn women into sluts.
You know what's crazy though? His guardrails that he puts around it, like in the cases of rape, incest, and health of the woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like kind of radical leftist today with a lot of the way that these people are pushing abortion.
Mm-hmm.
He would be seen
know.
as kind of a bleeding heart with the way things are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy because like that Politico article I was talking about also said that even people that were more like for banning abortion still thought that there should be these exceptions. And now it's like there are these people that are like no exceptions ever.
Yeah.
And it's wild. I also always that it's again to say that it's about control. This idea, I just want to point out like the illogicality, the illogicalness, I don't know, of saying that just because abortions are available, women are just going to have all this sex with like no protection and, you know, just like get pregnant because who cares? You can just go have an abortion. And it's like, okay, let's just step back for a second. First off, it's not fun
No.
to get an abortion, okay? Like all women know women who have had abortions if they have not, themselves not had one. And it fucking sucks. It's not nice. And then number two, it's also not nice psychologically. Even if you're like 100% fine with it, I don't care about having an abortion, I don't want a child, like anything like that. If you're just like, it's still not fun. Like it's hard. Like I have a friend who had an abortion in college, immediately did it, like no questions asked. Like we were kids. She was like, I'm not having a kid. Like this is crazy. She still now, as a fully grown adult who has a child, like thinks about sometimes like, oh, if I had had that baby, I would have a kid that was like X years old now. Like, I just want to point out that kind of like scapegoat or that kind of argument, like it's also just insane and controlling on its face. But like, if you step back and look at what you're actually saying about all women,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's like so crazy.
It's not a flu shot. It's not a pap
No.
smear. It's
No.
extremely difficult and invasive
Yeah.
and detrimental psychologically. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to put that aside in there for our listeners.
Also, it's just straight up wrong. So there's an institute called the Gutermacher Institute, which does does reporting on sexual and reproductive health and things like that. And they report quite simply that providing access to education and support programs for reproductive health does not increase abortion rates.
No.
having it available does not increase the rate of its use.
It does
just
save
it.
women's lives.
No, it saves women's lives
Yep.
and it actually decreases the rate of unwanted pregnancies
Yes.
to give people access to education and birth control.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You're decreasing abortions by
Yeah.
doing that.
And you're increasing babies that parents want to have.
The thing is, Billy Graham wasn't pro-life so much as he was anti-women. He believed that women want to be wives and they want to be baby factories because that's real womanhood to him. Here's some quotes from him on women and their acceptable practices. Too many women
Katie's face. I'm sorry. He hasn't even said anything, and Katie's face is amazing. You guys can't
sorry.
see this, but it's great.
This is the real horror of the
It's the
Amityville
real
Horror.
Amityville Horror. Yeah. We will get to the Amityville Horror, I promise. We have to lay the groundwork. Okay?
I just have no patience for fucking dudes talking about what women want.
And here is a man reading it for you
Yeah.
all for your enjoyment.
Yeah, yes,
Go
yes.
ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
All right.
Tell us what Billy Graham thought women wanted.
All right. He said, too many women have too much leisure time for their own good. They have too much time for criticism, gossip, fault-finding, and complaining. They have time for idle games and lay too much attention to things of the flesh. And on feminism, he said, feminism is an echo of our overall philosophy of permissiveness.
That's interesting. I mean, all of that is hilarious. But the thing that I thought was interesting was the overall philosophy of permissiveness, because that actually implies that you don't want permissiveness for men either. And like, I actually don't think that that's true, but it's indicative that there's like an overarching ideology that's contributing to this. That's not just like, I hate women. He also hates women, but you know, like,
Yeah.
anyway, keep going.
Well, actually, I'm done with this shit.
Great. Let's move on.
The point of all of this is that America in the late 60s and the early 70s was a motherfucking powder keg of religious and anti-religious conflict. You had conservative evangelists who had made abortion their red line because they believed that it was representative of all of the evils of this upcoming generation. To them, it represented independence, it represented autonomy, liberation, and nonconformity. And thanks to all of the press surrounding this and the pervasiveness of television and therefore televangelism, this argument was everywhere and on everybody's mind. We had this kind of cultural war of Christianity and Satanism. And as we see time and time again, the emotional and political state of the country is expressed through media. Horror, in a very particular way, reflects these fears of this culture. And this was never truer than in the time surrounding Roe v. Wade and the 1970s Jesus movement. I think it's obvious that teen slasher movies of the 70s and 80s manifested that generation's fears and insecurity over premarital sex. This whole virgin whore interplay with killers like Michael Myers targeting promiscuous teenagers, that has its roots in very real fears about the scandal and the consequence of sex.
Oh, yeah, and the Virgin Goody Two-Shoes usually lived.
Right. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was the one that vanquished the bad guy.
Absolutely, right? But let's talk very specifically about an earlier novel and film, one which set the stage for this deluge of horror that was about to come. And this is where our trigger warning for sexual assault is going to come in, because that is Rosemary's Baby. In this movie, our young protagonist, Rosemary Woodhouse, is living with her actor husband, Guy. His name is Guy, in Manhattan. After she is drugged and date raped, Rosemary ends up pregnant with an unusual baby. It starts feeding off her, leaves her in crippling pain and malnourished. And throughout the course of her pregnancy, she realizes the couple in the neighboring apartment are Satanists, and they are trying to take her baby. She confides in her husband, who doesn't believe her and threatens to have her committed. And after she goes into labor and gives birth, she's told her baby is stillborn and is sedated. She is sedated. But she can hear a baby crying from her neighbor's apartment. And so in defiance of her husband and her physician, she stops taking her medication and she sneaks into her neighbor's apartment through a secret passage. There she finds the Satanists and her husband surrounding a bassinet with her baby. The coven explains to her, "This is the son of the devil. You were always merely a vessel for it." And in a truly horrific ending, Rosemary cradles the child in her arms, implying that she will care for this demon spawn. She's left broken, hopeless, and helpless.
It's a very cool movie.
It's a cool movie. And I've
never seen it.
I'm not surprised.
It reminds me a little bit of Hereditary.
Yeah, it definitely had the DNA of Hereditary in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it's good. Like, it's kind of been on my list of like, okay, if I feel like I could stomach something that's a little more psychologically scary, like I should watch Rosemary's Baby, because of course I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Like it's such a classic. So
Yeah.
it's on my list. It's good. I've heard so much about it that it's made it onto a list of like maybe horror movies that I might watch.
Oh, good. Okay. Cool. I'd say that's a win.
That list is very short.
Is the Amityville Horror on that list?
Yeah, as is The Exorcist.
Okay. We'll talk about The Exorcist in an episode or two.
Yeah.
Anyway, the abortion theme, I think, is ragingly clear in Rosemary's Baby, right? You have this woman. She's subservient to her husband and his illustrious career as an actor. She's called upon to serve as the womb for the devil, a monster that nearly kills her during pregnancy. And once she gives birth to it, she's called to raise the son of the devil, her malicious rapist, because it serves the nuclear family, this evil cult that treats her as nothing but a slave to her offspring. You know, like,
It's very clever.
Very, very clear.
Is that what they intended?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
In a strange, bizarre coincidence, the film's director, Roman Polanski, his wife was Sharon Tate, who was murdered by Charles Manson's Satanists when she was 8 months pregnant. Now, that's a coincidence, but it made the whole thing very juicy for the tabloids, you know? You have the wife of the director of a film about pregnancy and Satanism who became a victim of satanic murder. Mm-hmm. Also, never forget that Roman Polanski was charged with drugging and raping an underage girl in 1977. This accusation was actually a mini Me Too movement in the 70s, with several other women accusing Polanski of sexually assaulting them while they were underage. The most recent of those accusations was settled out of court in 2024.
Wow. Fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, are we going to talk about how Roman Polanski's a little shit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Him and Woody Allen just going around.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right, sorry. We can move on.
Rosemary's Baby exemplified the religious turmoil in America in the 60s and the early 70s. You had a population driven by the popularity of counterculture and the rejection of mainstream values on one side. In response to that, that created a generation that was questioning religion. You're exploring esotericism, embracing freedoms from societal oppression. And then you have the Jesus movement, which believed all of that shit, all these countercultural tenets would lead people down a path of damnation. And they weaponized the abortion debate and the Satanist movement as examples of why, if you reject these societal norms, that's going to poison the mind of a generation of Americans. And, you know, I think there was a huge population in the middle, too, who were just normal working class folks who maybe didn't want to run off and join a commune, but also didn't, you know, think that the church should have influence over every aspect of their lives, too. But that was the state of the country when the house in Amityville went up for sale in 1975. Now, it was priced at $80,000.
Okay, go ahead.
And all of the millennials of 2025 let out a collective groan.
Yeah. $80,000 was it was low even then. Like even at that point, it was still a very low price for such a nice piece of property. 2.5-story house, 5 bedrooms, swimming pool, boat house, which led to the canal. I know. It's beautiful, right?
Oh my God.
There was a finished basement. There was a playroom. There was a built-in bar and fireplace. A lawn post near the road bore the sign, High Hopes.
This, Matt, you didn't tell us this was going to be a pornographic episode.
I know. Hold on. I'm looking at how much money that house, $80,000 is today. $480,000.
Oh my God, that's still pretty good.
Well, and it was.
I know. It's a big jump,
yeah.
but I'm saying like that's
still a
house
very
like
good
that
price.
for under $500,000.
In a nice neighborhood too.
Yeah,
you know,
in Long Island.
Amityville
Yeah.
is Long Island. It's a very, very nice section.
You can't get that now.
Yeah.
No way.
No. That house would be like $2 million.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So George and Kathy Lutz, they had married in 1975, July of 1975. They both owned their own homes at the time, but they were ready to take the leap and buy a property together for their new family. Kathy had been married previously, and she had 3 children from that marriage. Daniel, who was 9, Christopher, who was 7, and Melissa, or Missy, who was 5. And then they also had Harry, the Malamute Labrador mix. They saw this property, 112 Ocean Avenue, and I will say that the address has been changed, but that was the address at the time, 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. This was going to be like a sanctuary for their new family. But this house had an evil history, one that the Lutzes actually knew about. When their real estate agent showed them the house, she took them aside and she whispered, "I don't think this is the house you're looking for." And then she explained to them that the house's previous owner was the DeFeo family, and that it had been the site of an unfathomable tragedy. But we will talk about that tragedy and the beginnings of the mystery of the Amityville Horror in our next episode.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pretty fun.
And this is the state. So this is the historical context for everything that's going to come, because I don't think the story of the Amityville Horror happens in 1955. I don't think it would have worked. And I don't think it happens in 1989. I think it had to happen when it happened.
Do you think, though, it could have happened, though, during the Satanic Panic of the 1980s, 90s?
Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, probably, actually. Yeah.
But maybe not. Yeah, maybe not like the 50s, 40s even.
Yeah,
No.
it had to be now. It had to be when everything was brewing the way it is here.
I also don't think it happens like now or in like the 2000s or something, because
No.
I think there's too much, like the media is slightly different now.
Yeah, I think so too. Next time we'll get into some of that spooky stuff.
It's already pretty spooky, but, you know.
We'll get into some of the bullshit that they claim happened there. How about that?
That sounds good. Yeah, because Billy
sounds
Graham
very
is pretty
fun.
spooky. Billy Graham, if my mom said, Billy Graham's under your bed, you better not get up wandering around in the middle of the night. I'd be like, okay, I'm not getting up. I'm not going anywhere.
No, you would know if Billy Graham was under your bed because he would just be screaming the whole time.
That's true.
He wouldn't shut the fuck up.
That's true.
Yeah.
I will leave you all with a wonderful fundamentalist quote that I had been told as a kid. Let's see. If you follow the devil, then you are evil. Okay, let's look at the word devil for a second, spelling it out. If you follow the word devil, you are evil. If you are evil, you're a villain. If you're a villain, you are ill. And if you are ill, you're going to go to L.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I'm sure it's better said, but that's basically the gist of what that beautiful, beautiful thing was told to me when I was a kid. It was pretty cool.
You know what that sounds like, though? It sounds like Glenn Beck, who was doing that shit seriously in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like when people make fun of like QAnon or conspiracy theorists when they're like, well, this has like these 4 letters in it. And if you pull those out and move them over here, like what's that related to? It's related to this.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone that has like numbered out the like D is the 4th letter and E is the 5th. And then if you add them all together, you get some number that means something somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
Numerology bullshit.
So there you go. There's some wisdom, hot wisdom I'm throwing at you.
Wow. There you go.
Yep.
That's your takeaway. Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this week. And we will be back next time with more Amityville Horror.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Be safe out there. Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the 40 in History podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways you can show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on socials at Slaying Monsters Podcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.